it's my pleasure to welcome Dawn Anderson.
Has anybody heard of SEO snake oil salesman? There's a few out there. So actually, it's important that you make sure that everything you do in SEO is really credible. And obviously, I see that as part of my role. So what I wanted to talk to you today about, and you'll have to bear with me because I've had laryngitis for 5 weeks, so it's kind of going, but you know, it's on its way out. So I wanted to talk to you today about the rise of persona modeling in contextual search, in search engines. And I'll go into what that means in more detail as we go along. There you go, everything, blah, blah. So basically the point is, my search universe is not the same as yours. Obviously, we don't see the same things when we go into any kind of aspect of search now. And that's not just when we go onto our desktop and have a look. It's obviously when we go onto our mobile, in our emails, for instance, we start to see things, personal, flights, etc., that kind of thing. So everybody has a different experience nowadays. And, you know, we all, if you check rankings on organic search for keywords that you rank for, we all have these kind of tools that we say, oh, well, we're in the top 10 for this, or we're in the top 30, or the top 50, etc. The problem is, tools are mostly wrong, because they are abstract. They're literally not taking into consideration things like personalization, personal search, context, location, proximity to certain things, etc. So they can only ever really produce an abstract guess at best. There's no such thing, if you like, as being number one on Google anymore. Because obviously, as I've said, there's all these elements to look at. There's even things like temporal nature. So based on things that are happening around you at the same time. And obviously mobile search, etc. And even in, you know, we say personal search has been around, so based on the historical clicks that we've done, even when you're not logged in since 2009. So this is just for everybody, basically. If you're using Chrome, you're basically being tracked everywhere. Every search query that you run is building a better picture of you. Okay, so what's happening is, obviously, search engines now, over the past, you know, 15 years, 10, 15 years, I think 15 years, they've gone from, obviously, the 10 blue links to now they're looking to be, really, if you like, the assistant that's always in your pocket. Does anybody use Google now, Google Assistant at all? I swear to God, it runs my life. I live my life off my Google Calendar. It notifies me, sends me emails an hour before, 10 minutes before, and so on. So it's just becoming more and more about being there whenever we need it, all the time. And it's obviously based around a triangulation of data points. Obviously, as we're going forward now, it's almost like they're moving more from search and into a model of CRM. So we're the customer that they're constantly trying to preempt our needs and our information needs for. So it's a bit like Tesco. Has anybody got a Tesco club card here? So basically Tesco obviously gather all sorts of data on you. They know what time you go shopping. If you're a person that goes shopping on a Saturday morning, you know, nowadays they're even building models whereby they actually send you a text message and say, don't forget to get X, you know. So they know you, and you know, our lives are so busy, so and search engines are trying to do the same. So as I say, it's just literally building these intelligent patterns as they're going along to just preempt what you need. And as I say, if you ever look on histogram, Chrome:// when you're on your computer, this is all your data just being transported back and forth based on all the queries that you personally run. It's all there, just being sent to map pictures of you. There's quite a lot of research. As I say, I'm a big fan of academia as much as practice. For me, you can find a lot of the secrets just by following the Google research team and looking at the papers that have driven that research. And a lot of their stuff now is into learning from user interactions, personal search. There's even some stuff going on that's around eye tracking with mobile devices. So using gaze as an indication of what results you're most interested in. It's quite new, but this is all going on as we're going along. And obviously things like related events that people are attending at the same time make sense to show them similar results, etc. And a lot of these are also in the Google Rank Brain teams. People who are familiar with Google Rank Brain, the natural language and machine learning modelling that they're doing to understand using artificial intelligence all the things that we want to do next based on X behaviour and so forth. But mostly it's not about our data. I know I've said they're gathering lots of stuff about us personally, but obviously they have this issue, and there's a huge amount of stuff around GDPR going on around privacy and personalisation. There's only so much information they can gather before they get to the point where, in actual fact, these become people that are individually identifiable. And then there's a problem because you've breached privacy. So what's happening is, it's based on people like you or me. It's basically building models of similar people who do the same sort of things, who also like X, because then clearly you're not breaching data privacy the same. You're basically just developing these personas so that you can understand these are similar people that are like the same sort of things, they live in the same sort of place, they have the same sort of jobs, they're the same sort of age, they're likely to like the same kind of things, a little bit like Amazon do. So people who bought this also bought this type thing. And there's other stuff as well, so around like query intent shift. That means that the same keyword can have a completely different meaning at different times. Gathering data on people. That was just a random slide I put in there. And as I said, there's a long way to go with the likes of things like Google Voice. Has anybody got one of these, Google Home? Yeah? How do you find it? Useful? So mine spends its time saying, I'm sorry, I don't have a useful result for you this time. Yeah. The only time it ever pipes up is when my husband, who's at the back there, is watching Manchester City, and City score, and he rolls across the floor and starts making noises, and it suddenly springs into life and starts saying, how can I help? So at the moment, there's a long way to go with Google Voice, but this is another place that they're gathering data from, households, etc. All these data points being added together. And as I said, the exact same keyword was coming to this can have a completely different meaning at different times. So it's a temporal intent. It's called query intent shift. So this was last week. 2 weeks ago, I went to a summer school on information retrieval, and some of the presenters there were search engineers from Google and Yahoo Labs, the old Yahoo Labs, Yandex and Facebook and so on. And they were actually talking about this. This is a paper, an academic paper. There was a search engineer that was presenting. He was talking about Easter. So Easter can have a completely different meaning, different times. So what happens is they'll serve different results based on what meets the information need at the time, based on probability, click data. Yeah, let's face it. Not saying it affects rankings on individual sites, but it does affect what's going to be shown based on past historical data. So, for instance, a few weeks prior to Easter, when people type that word in, they historically want to know when it is. Yeah. A few days before, they want to know what to do. Yeah. So they're looking for events and places to go, etc. And during, people want to know what is the meaning of Easter. So people that say, oh my God, I was ranking last week for Easter. No, I'm not. Not necessarily them. It's the fact that actually the content that they produced at that time didn't actually meet the information need this week or right now. Yeah. So it's important to realise it's not always you. Sometimes it's just that it's actually not the right content for the query. Yeah, even though the word is the same. So these are all important things. We know, for instance, now the customer behaviour has just changed. It's no longer this whole linear user journey. It's very much going round and round and round, gathering lots of information. Micro moments, they call it. As everybody's aware of micro moments, yeah. So informational need moments throughout time. Tiny, tiny bits. So, for instance, we'll all be on our mobile phones, and we're busy people, so we'll maybe be looking for a holiday, but we'll spend maybe our time as the passenger in a car researching the holiday. We're not going to necessarily book it there and then, because we know that very few people actually convert on mobile compared with research. People research on mobile, convert on desktop. But we'll maybe do a bit of research because we like to have all these tiny moments where we're moving towards a goal, if you like, task completion. You know, look at this. You know, the 0 moment of truth is now many, many micro moments. So people are literally building up a picture. That's why it's really important to make sure you're always there for your customer in organic search. Always there, always relevant, many, many touch points. You know, ultimately you become the only decision when it comes down to making the choice. Look at this. This is some research that was carried out by Google that did this, I think it might have been with Gartner. And they looked at how many times, how many micro moments somebody had before they actually bought the car that they wanted. 900 touch points, yeah, of research, yeah, this person did. So they were looking at, you know, which car's best? Is it right for me? Can I afford it? So that's things like comparisons, calculators, finance, etc. Matching the content that you produce with the information need at the time towards ultimately the goal, sell the car or buy the car. Now I'm getting a deal, again, that's another company. You just have to match the query intent, if you like. And mobile search for best has grown over 80% in the last 2 years. This was released the other day. So basically, we don't just go and buy things anymore. You know, the first thing we do is like, ooh, which is the best? You know, what do other people think? We want everybody else's opinion. So reviews is massive. And it seems we're even research the most irrelevant of things now. Best toothbrush, I mean, God, get a life, really. So, best umbrellas, whatever. Best deodorants, okay, each their own. The point is here, it's so important, not just to sort of be a yah-yah content marketing person or a yah-yah marketing person, but really, you have to know your audience, because it's not just about being there for your target market. It's about being there for everybody else that's like other people in your target market, because what's going to happen is when search engines see that actually you're meeting a need for people similar to somebody else, they'll start to produce, turn up your site as a result, because they know, oh, actually, that brand helped people like this, in this demographic, at this moment, with this context, in this location. Does that make sense? So it's being there and being the most relevant. So there's loads of stuff around this here. When you start to look, for instance, in your Google Analytics, you'll see, obviously, in the demographics section, you'll start to get a feel for like the age groups. Make sure you ensure that you've got things like gender tracking and demographic interest groups switched on, because it's not by default in analytics. You'll start to build up this picture. But realize also that 98% of people in organic search are just window shopping. Yeah, very little of it will convert. So make sure that, for instance, you realize that actually you're looking at things like assisted conversions, because a lot of people will come out with this claim, oh, SEO is dead. But actually, when they look at it, when they look at attributions and assisted conversion, they realize actually lots of people have seen their site in organic search, but maybe then they've maybe been hit by a cookie, they've been remarketed to, and PPC has done the final conversion. So really it's about just tracking it all across the whole journey. People are on the go, just doing tiny things all the time. And mobile, we know that now searches in Google on mobile exceed desktop. And that's why they're switching to the mobile first index, which means that everybody's site is going to be, if you've got a mobile site, that is the one that's going to be in the index versus a desktop site. Now, of course, the majority of people have responsive sites, but still it's going to be measured on mobile friendliness. And mobile friendliness doesn't mean just ticking the box. What it means is that actually you're a good experience on mobile. Yeah. So that means looking at things like navigational areas, fly-out menus, that kind of thing. There's slightly different rules with mobile going forward. And mobile could mean anything. It could mean things across home, the Internet of Things, all sorts. For instance, on mobile, if you have content hidden in tabs, you're not going to be penalised because it's there for UX. Google are aware of this, because actually it's much easier to have tabbed and carousels, etc. Whereas now, everything's a bit more weighted on desktop because there's more space. So it's getting the balance and, working with your developers and your SEO team to work out which is the best way to make sure that we convert still, have a good experience, but also don't lose our rankings. And also, especially on mobile, humans now have a lower attention span or shorter attention span than goldfish, yeah? So you have to be like fast, really fast, because there is so much choice out there and people will just be on to the next best thing. Expectations are high. And as I said, the mobile first index is on its way. Just keep an eye on that because they're testing at this moment. I was at Brighton SEO last week and Google's Gary Esch was interviewed there and as one of those sessions, and he said, we don't know when it's going to be yet, but it's going to be soon, yeah. So they're testing it because they want to make sure, things like links on page, for instance, totally different on mobile. Everything's a totally different experience, yeah. So pay attention to that very much. But the great thing is about all these tiny, tiny moments, there's a huge amount of research that actually looks at the fact that people have far lesser brand loyalty when they're doing all these like informational searches, which is great if you're a smaller organization, you're local, you're a startup, and you're thinking, oh my God, all these massive brands, they're just gonna kick us all over the place. Not so. People just want to be helped at any given moment, and it doesn't necessarily mean you've got to be a big guy to get there. And as I say, you have to be fast on mobile because people will abandon very, very quickly. Yeah, and it's like over 3 seconds, you've got to really be super fast. I mean, for instance, consider AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. Is everybody familiar with Accelerated Mobile Pages? Yeah, AMP. Yeah, that's the solution that search engines are offering as an alternative for those pages that could potentially be viewed on mobile. Google stores a cache of these pages called AMP pages, and you can overlay your site with that. Makes them super, super fast, under 2 seconds, basically. And there's also what they call the AMP carousel. So all the news publishers now at the top, you'll see like a little lightning bolt when you see the news results. You have to be an AMP page to be in that news carousel. And it's not just big news either. So for instance, if you're a travel site or a cooking site that has recipes or events or soft news like places to go, and you're not AMP, you won't get in the AMP carousel. So that's also important. And also security. Over half the web is now encrypted, yeah, which is great for a safer web. Because of all the interception that's potentially available, you're on Wi-Fi in a hotel room, you go to a non-HTTPS page, potential for people to intercept and send loads of ads or spam or whatever in the middle. Things like Let's Encrypt, completely free. Is everybody's site here on HTTPS? Or are you planning to move to HTTPS secure website? Yeah? Okay. So, nearly half the sites, all over half the sites I know. And there is a small ranking boost as well. When you look at the top 10 for anything, it's pretty much all HTTPS now. And obviously, everything counts. There are over 200 ranking factors. So this is quite an easy one to tick the box on. Loads of tools that you can do loads of testing with for speed, etc. Free ones, Pingdom, GTmetrix is brilliant. One of my favorite tools. Literally gives you a takeaway box that you can pass to your devs, or if you're that way inclined, you can have a go at fixing yourself, or deal with your agency, etc. Literally just gives everything. And there is obviously the Google's mobile testing tool as well, which is again free. Gives you a takeaway list that you can work on. And no interstitials, this was a big thing. I think a lot of it really came from Forbes. If anybody remembers, every time you used to go on big sites like Forbes on your desktop or your mobile, as soon as you got there, it was like, sign up to our newsletter. So this now, obviously, is if you have still any of these pop-ups on your site, when people get there on mobile, it's literally going to be penalizable. So you get penalized now, yeah. No interstitials, it's called the interstitial penalty. So if you have got them, on desktop it's fine, but just make sure that you have ticked the box to say no mobile, because you're going to get penalised, particularly with the mobile first index, yeah, going forward. It's quite a big knockdown as well. And obviously things like caching, again, when it comes to speed, which is going to be all important, there's loads of things that you can add to if you've got a lot of, if you've got WordPress, loads and loads of different WordPress plugins for caching, really useful. There's good handy comparison there. That just obviously speeds up delivery, etc. Yeah, so also huge amount of on-the-go queries have local intent. So obviously, you know, when people are on the go, really it's important to work on things like your Google My Business page if you've got a local business. If you're bricks and mortar and you're not just a pure play online e-commerce site or, you know, something like that that actually doesn't have an actual bricks and mortar office or branch. But if you have, then obviously Google My Business is a massive big win area, and they're doing loads on that at the moment. You can now upload blog posts to it, you can add videos, makes a huge difference actually, really maximising that, and it's free, completely free. You can even look at the analytics on it now, in addition to Google Analytics. Literally, it's just about, you know, meeting these needs on the as you go through things like, you know, the RACE digital planning model by Dave Chaffee, reach, act, convert, engage, all these places where you can literally just keep hitting these touch points as you go on. And, you know, using things like in, near. Having said that, Google has just announced this last week that queries including near me have literally like dropped to the floor, simply because people now assume that when they look on their mobile for cafes, coffee shops, plumbers, whatever, they're going to get the local results. So actually there's not necessarily the need to have near me there anymore. But basically, you know, there's masses of opportunity to be gained here for the smaller business. Look at Google Correlates. See, you know, Google Correlates is a free tool as well, and Google Trends. Look at the things actually that correlate together. So queries, so Valentine's is going to correlate with roses, etc. Look these things up and just see, get ideas for content that are based around events that are coming up at the same time. Yeah, same thing. Okay. So for instance as well, query refinement. This is massive, you know. See, this little search is related to what kind of dog does Sharon Osbourne have. This is how we've got a dog called Bert, this Pomeranian, this is her. We found her because we were watching X Factor. I've never really liked dogs, and I saw Sharon Osbourne's dog. I was like, oh my God, I want that dog. So I Googled Sharon Osbourne's dog, and it came up with and said Pomeranians, yeah. So that was to do with, where did that data come from? It came with from Google's knowledge base. Does a load of data mining in Wikipedia, DBpedia, all the structured stuff, conversational search, lists, etc. that's in web pages, data mapping, yeah. This changes all the time. This clustering of query intent is based on what other people have searched for in the next probable search. Based on something called Markov chains. This is the science part of it, really. It's basically like role-playing games, yeah. So if you you know, does anybody use like video games where actually the decisions you make now, you go and talk to the man, or you talk to the characters along the path, and whatever you say to him determines which direction you go in next. So it's like that. Query refinement, when you're searching for things on Google, is like that. So whatever you enter is basically going to determine the next queries that they offer you, yeah. Okay, so it's all changing. So it's important to make sure you have the content as a marketer to meet those queries. Answer the Public, brilliant tool. Finding out what queries people are searching, free again. Look in there, Answer the Public. This creepy guy off Answer the Public is really weird, freaks you out. But basically, it has all the search queries that around a particular subject. You can export it all as a proposition, produce great content around it to meet the needs. Same thing as well, realise actually that certain queries are going to be looking for certain types of content. So if you type in something like bathroom inspiration, you're not going to rank with a piece of content that just explains what bathrooms are. You're going to rank with a piece of content that has a lot of images based around ideas, inspiration, because that literally is what the query intent is. See pictures. Another tool, be helpful, yeah. Swoogle, yeah. Suval, brilliant. semantic stuff. Literally, you just enter a word, how to bake, I entered in there, and it throws out, it's free, spits out all the different propositions based on the intent from all the different search engines, produce the content, produce great content, and make sure that you really clearly have your site sections mapped to intent as well. So use the Help Hub Hero framework, which is a really great framework. Make sure everything in a certain section is around support, but also map those topical sections crossways. So if you've got a blog and a commercial part of your site around red shoes or dancing shoes, and you build content that's around dancing, interlink crosswise, passes masses of relevance, yeah. But be careful by making sure you map intent around the content, yeah, in the section, so make sure you don't outrank yourself, yeah. Because you really don't want your blog on your dancing shoes outranking your dancing shoes target page. This is how you do it. Okay, lists and tables, brilliant, yeah. So make sure they always rank for things because of the structured data that Google's searching for now, like this. How to bake a cake, it's going to be a list, unordered list, whatever comes up in the structured and the featured snippets at the top, it's usually always lists. Same with tables, women's dress sizes. Add tables and lists to your content. And realise also that you need to write for a 9-year-old. The government website now, that's their policy, write for a 9-year-old. Because search engines really are only they only gather queries based around 20-odd%, I think is 28% of the words, yeah, out there. They build their databases on that. And also, obviously, nowadays people want different types of content. Going forward, this next generation is primarily driven by video and images, yeah, not masses of text. But obviously, we need text because search engines work off text to rank things primarily. Yeah, collaborate. You know, no channel really should ever work on its own. Yeah. So I work very closely with PPC. It's a great way of us using things like quality score to test things like page titles and meta descriptions and content. And I work with UX people because what's the point of getting rankings if it doesn't convert into sales? So the key is, you know, the winners are those that collaborate across channel, because obviously social media, massive for amplifying. It's not my strength. My strength is in SEO, but obviously I'm aware that everything has to fit together. And this is Google's Gary Isle saying, look, if you're struggling to rank for a really competitive keyword, the answer might be in images or video. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities there. This is just a same sort of thing. You'll be able to see all these slides. I'll share them all on SlideShare. Yeah, video. You know, as I say, people are spending more time with video than they do with words on pages. So this is really, make sure you have a real wide range of content and keep sentences very short. Last week when I was at the information retrieval summer school, one of the Google research team who were working on conversational search said, we really like such short sentences because it quickly gives an answer when on voice search and Google Home. Also, be very careful. If you're going to answer a question, make sure you don't put the answer at the end of a massive paragraph, because if you've ever heard Google Home struggling to go through a massive paragraph and then the answer comes out at the end, it's not good. So we have to be thinking about ways we can meet these needs as well. So it's not just for desktop anymore, it's conversational search. They reckon that this is going to be huge, you know, by 2020, 70% of search is going to be voice driven. Yeah. So really a big time now to be putting it into your strategy. Just be there, right audience. We've heard it all before. I'll probably take some buzzword bingo things with this one slide alone. And that's it. Thank you. Hope you found that useful. Yeah.